Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on federal trademark searching. My name is Kyle Ingram, and I'm an attorney advisor with the Trademark Customer Outreach Office here at the USPTO. Now, we have a lot to get into today, but before we do that, there's a couple housekeeping measures. First, the slides should have already been emailed to you via Salesforce. However, if you did not receive that email, you should receive that email shortly after the presentation. And that email is going to contain the slides. It's going to contain some handouts that are pertinent to what we're going over today. And it's also going to contain a survey that you can fill out, letting us know what works about this presentation, what doesn't work about the presentation, what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like to see less of, that type of thing. And we really value those surveys because ultimately it's you guys who are the customers when it comes to these types of webinars. So we want to make sure that what we're doing matches the needs that our customers have. Captioning is available for today's presentation. There's a little CC box there in the corner that you can click on, and that'll bring up live captioning. It's going to do its best. It might get a word or two wrong, but you should get the gist of what it is that we're talking about. When it comes to questions, there's two different types of questions. There are technical questions that are, hey, I'm not getting any sound. The video's not coming through, that type of thing. Those are going to go in the chat window. And our IT guru, Jay, is going to try and help you out with those. Now, you'll also find links to the materials in the chat window. Now, if you have a substantive question about the material itself, that's going to go in the Q&A box, and that Q&A box is going to get turned on here in a minute or two. Um, I'll try and let Jay know when we can turn that on, but sometimes I forget. Jay, if you're there and it seems like I've shot well past the point where we're going over substantive material, feel free to turn that on your own. Now, in that Q&A window is going to be my colleague, Christina Calloway, and she's going to be doing her best to keep up and answer those questions that you guys are putting out there. Now, keep in mind, there is only one person, Christina, in there who is working that Q&A window. So if there's a lot of questions, she's going to be doing her best to get to all of them. Keep in mind that we cannot give legal advice or business advice. So if you're asking, hey, what should I do in this circumstance? That's the type of question that we're not going to be able to answer. If there are questions that are beyond the scope of the material that we're presenting today, she may not be able to get to those as well. But again, we're going to do our best to get to everything. If we don't get to your question, it doesn't mean it wasn't important. We just kind of ran out of time and ran out of bandwidth for it. So with that out of the way, let's get into the discussion topics. We're going to start off discussing comprehensive clearance searching. What is it that you're doing in our search system anyway? What type of thing should you be looking for? Spoiler alert, it just might be that next bullet point, likelihood of confusion. That's one of these substantive refusals that we at the USPTO issue if there are particular problems with your application, specifically if what you're trying to register is too close to something that's already registered. We'll discuss search system fundamentals, federal trademark searching. We'll go into some common search strategies, and we'll end with how to find help, places that you can look on our website for resources and guidance as you go through your application and hopefully registration journey. As I said, the USPTO does not provide legal advice. We actually are not permitted to provide legal advice. The program is for informational purposes only. We're only going to cover the mechanics of searching the Federal Register. So we're going to go over how you get in there and do a search. So we're not going to show you what a comprehensive, legally sufficient search will look like for your particular application. We're just going to show you how the stuff works, and it'll be incumbent upon you to create and draft that search that's going to meet all the needs for you and your application. So let's talk comprehensive clearance searching. The idea, like I said, is you want to determine whether your trademark is going to conflict with the rights of a trademark owner who filed before you. And Jay, I think we are now into the substantive material. So if you want to turn on that Q&A window, this would be a great time to do so. The benefits to doing this type of search is that you can avoid that likelihood of confusion refusal from the USPTO. If you go out there and you see that someone's already registered something that's too close to what it is you want to register, well, you can potentially not apply for that mark. You can avoid that refusal. You can avoid um, spending all of that time and money developing this brand name that ultimately you may not be able to register. You can avoid an opposition proceeding at the USPTO. You can avoid a trademark infringement lawsuit where if you apply for this mark, this other owner whose interest preceded yours might say, hey, there's someone out there whose trademark is infringing on mine. So the benefits are you can avoid all of these things. Now, I'm kind of a glass half full guy. I don't want to focus on just what you can avoid. I want to also think in terms of what you can gain. If you do this legally sufficient comprehensive clearance search and you see that there's no one else out there who's registered something or applied for something that's too close to what you want, well, you can rest a little easier knowing that that's one fewer hurdle that you'll have to deal with in your application process. So, if I were the applicant and I did my search and I didn't find anything, I would feel really good. So, yeah, you can avoid the bad, but you also can enjoy the good. And we do recommend hiring a private trademark attorney to do this comprehensive clearance search. And they'll be able to search our database of registrations and applications, which is what we're going to go over today. But they're going to have more experience in doing so. They're going to know how to use that search language to its optimum efficiency so that they can look in every nook and cranny and under every stone to make sure that there's something that isn't out there waiting to jump up and bite you when you apply. Now, that's not to say that you can't do a good search on your own. We're going to show you the mechanics of the search so that you can do your own search. But that private trademark attorney is definitely going to have more experience in doing that and working in our systems. So they'll know how to get to state trademark databases, business name registries, foreign trademark databases, and how to search the internet to potentially find a common law right holder that might have superior rights to yours. Now, we don't have time to go into the difference between common law rights and federal registration rights and which one trumps which in which situation. We do discuss that in other presentations, particularly our trademark basics presentation, as well as our trademark bootcamp presentations. We just don't have time to go into all of that right now. If you're not going to hire that attorney, and that can be understandable, perhaps you're early on in your business establishment and you haven't set aside this money to get these legal services early on. Attorneys can be expensive sometimes. I totally get it. So if you're going to do this search on your own, you definitely want to search the USPTO database. And again, that's what we're going to show you today. And you'll also want to search the internet, and that's going to help you find those common law users, those people who have common law rights, which may or may not pose an issue for you in terms of enforcement of your trademark. So let's talk likelihood of confusion. The idea behind a likelihood of confusion refusal is that we want to avoid confusing consumers about the source of goods and services. If we approved every application that came in the door, regardless of how close it was to other applications and registrations, well, you'd end up with a marketplace where the trademarks were too close. And if I'm a consumer and let's just say I'm shopping for athletic wear and business casual wear, and I'm holding up a pair of uh, Lululemon pants and a pair of Lululemon pants, well, maybe I don't know which one came from which place. Which were the ones that fell apart in the wash right away, which were the high quality ones. And if I can't make that determination, then I can't really trust the products that are out there. Companies and businesses and individuals can't effectively communicate to their consumers the source of goods and services. And if that line of communication is severed, that's not good for anyone. That's just bad for commerce in general. So because of that, we have a test here at the USPTO. And if there is an application which presents a likelihood of confusion with an existing registration, then that application will be refused. And the test for whether or not there's a likelihood of confusion, first, are the trademarks confusingly similar? And you notice I said similar there, not identical. The test is whether they are similar in appearance, in sound, in commercial impression, in meaning, that type of thing. And if that prong is met, we drop down to the second prong, are the goods and services related? And relatedness is a very evidence-based analysis. What you do is you look at the stuff right here that the registrant uses their mark with, and this stuff over here that the applicant wants to register their mark for. And you say, okay, are there entities out there in commerce that make this stuff and this stuff under the same brand name? And if you're seeing that happen with some regularity, if there's three, four, five, or more entities out there that do both under the same brand name, well, that means that consumers are acclimated to seeing these goods and services coming from the same source. And in that instance, those goods and services are related. Keep in mind that both prongs have to be met in order for there to be a likelihood of confusion refusal. We all know of trademarks that are identical that exist happily out there in the market together. Think of Dove. You have Dove for chocolate and ice cream, and you have Dove for soap and shampoo. Now, are those trademarks confusingly similar? Of course they are. Those actually are identical. The most type of similar you can be. But are those goods and services related? Do you see companies out there that do chocolate and ice cream and soap and shampoo under the same brand name? You don't. There's none that I'm aware of, but there might be one, but it's not something that you see with any regularity. Consumers aren't used to seeing these types of goods and services sold under that same brand name. Because of that, Dove and Dove can coexist in the market together. So when you're doing your search, just because you find a mark that's identical to or very similar to yours, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a likelihood of confusion. You also have to look to see whether or not the goods and services are related. So this is actually what we just discussed. Let's run through a few examples real quick. You want to register T-Marky for shirts, and when you do your search, you find T-Marky for pants. Is this a likelihood of confusion? Let's run through the prongs. Are the marks confusingly similar? T-Marky versus T-Marky? Again, identical, so those are going to be similar. Shirts versus pants. Are there companies out there that do both pants and shirts under the same brand name? Well, I got to tell you, I am one of the least fashionable people you will ever meet, and my girlfriend can attest to this. But even I could probably name 20 different companies that do pants and shirts under the same brand name. So, yes, that second prong is met, that first prong is met. This is a likelihood of confusion. Now you still want to register T Marquee for shirts, and you find T Marquee for pants. Is this a likelihood of confusion? Well, the first prong, are the marks confusingly similar? T Marquee versus T Marquee. Do they look similar? Not really. Do they sound similar? Uh-oh, we have a problem here because these are either identical in sound or highly similar in sound. So that first prong is going to be met. As we discussed in the last example, shirts and pants, related goods. Prong number one is met. Prong number two is met. This is a likelihood of confusion. Now, our final example, before we move into the actual search system itself, you still want to do T-Marky for shirts. And when you do your search, you find T-Marky for golf flags. Is this a likelihood of confusion? Well, in that last example, we saw that T-Marky versus T-Marky are confusingly similar because they are highly similar or identical in sound. So let's drop to that second prong. Are shirts and golf flags related goods? I don't know. I really don't. And this is where you would need to go out and do that market research to see if there are entities out there that do both golf flags and shirts under the same brand name. Now, for me, I would probably start off with companies that make golf shirts and also do some type of golf goods, maybe like a champion or a ping or a titleist, something like that. Might be, if it were my mark, where I started my search. Now, again, we don't give legal advice. So if this is the situation you happen to be encountering with your mark, don't think, hey, that attorney Kyle Ingram told me this is how I do a legally sufficient search. No, 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 no. Just giving you an example of maybe how I might do it if it were mine, not legal advice. So let's move on to search system fundamentals. Why are you using this search system in the first place? We just discussed that clearance search and how it helps you avoid the bad things and get you the good feelings if you do that search and you don't find anything that's going to be an issue. You may also want to research how the USPTO treated similar marks in the past. Uh, you might be familiar with some of our other refusals. If you've attended our other webinars or our boot camps, there's the merely descriptive refusal. And in those instances, registration is refused when a mark merely describes something about the goods and the services. If you have a mark that's kind of on the line and you're not sure if it's going to be treated as descriptive or suggestive in a way that allows the mark to be registered, well, you can jump in our search system and do a search. See how we've treated that wording, that phrase, with regard to the specific goods and services you would like to register your mark for use with. Now, keep in mind, that's not necessarily going to determine whether or not your particular mark is registrable. Keep in mind that market conditions can change. What was once suggestive, what was once permissible to register, can become descriptive or generic over time. Additionally, uh, trademark examining attorneys can make mistakes. Sometimes they can allow things on the register that shouldn't really be on the register. And if a trademark attorney makes a mistake, that examining attorney who's looking at your application isn't necessarily bound by that same mistake. So you can't really say, well, that attorney made a mistake and let that guy on the register, so now you have to let me on the register. That's not really how it works. But if you do that search and you have a pretty decent sample size of how a particular word or phrase has been treated with regard to the goods and services, that can indicate how that examining attorney uh, might um, might determine the descriptiveness of your mark, but it can inform your decision is the important thing. You may want to research marks owned by a particular owner. That could be you, that could be your competitor, or you may want to check the status of your own application or registration. You can do all of these in our system. So this is what our system looks like when you first get in. It's what the user interface is. And in the way that Google allows you to search the internet, this is going to allow you to search our database of applications and registrations. So on here, you have a number of different things going on. We'll discuss them in more detail as we go on. That help button in the blue bar near the top in the right-hand corner is going to be a fantastic resource. Now, I know there's a lot of government sites out there that have a help website, and when you go there, it really isn't that helpful. Uh, this is an exception to that. The help section here in our search system is tremendously helpful. We put a ton of time and resources into making this somewhere you can go and have your questions answered about what it is you're looking for, what this particular type of search does. What are these particular fields? So check that out if when you ultimately do your search, you're running into issues or you have questions, that should be your the first resource you check out. We also have the feedback button here on the right-hand side, aligned vertically. Um, this is very much a work in progress, our search system here. If there's something that you want to see or something that isn't working the way it's supposed to, or if there's a bug, so on and so forth, if you want to communicate that to the designers, you can do that with the feedback button. Just click on that, fill out what you need to, and hit submit, and then that will go to us. We do very much consider your feedback, and we've made several changes in the system already based upon that feedback. There's two ways to use the system. There's drop-down searching, and that allows you to click on a particular drop-down window and do a search of that field. And that's sufficient if you want to do a dead-on search of a single word. If you're looking to do something a little more complex, if you're looking to search homonyms, if you're looking to search words that sound similar, different spellings of what you want to search, your drop-down searching isn't going to do that. So we do recommend using field tags for your search when you ultimately execute that search, but just know the drop-down function is still available if you want to do that more simple dead-on search. There are two ways to adjust your options. There's basic mode and expert mode. For all intents and purposes, you should ignore basic mode and always be in expert mode. There isn't any difference between basic mode and expert mode in terms of how difficult it is to use. The only difference is if you're in basic mode, certain functionalities of the search system are not available to you. So just always be in expert mode, save yourself the hassle. Well, regardless of how you're searching, you'll have a couple different ways that you can organize your results. Right there with that red box on the screen is organizing your search results in a grid pattern. This is the list pattern, and then this is compressed. So you'll see with the compressed view, you can view more results, but you're not seeing as much with regard to those results. It's up to you how you want to organize your results. Over here on the left-hand side, you can sort your results. The first one is by relevance. Now, keep in mind there is a difference between relevance as it relates to the search engine, and that is where our algorithm looks at the mark that you've searched for and compares it to the marks in the search results and tries to bring up what it thinks is the most relevant. This is not doing any type of relatedness analysis. Remember, in that likelihood of confusion, that second prong is relatedness of goods and services. That's a totally different thing than relevance in this search engine. You can organize by alphabetical order. You can do classes. We'll talk about those a little bit here in a second, or these serial numbers. And my favorite button, one that I certainly used a lot when I was learning to use the system, is the reset button. So this will reset all of the searching that you've done and let you start anew. This is good if you want to perform an additional search, or if you're like me when I was learning and I just dorked up a ton of searches. That reset button was certainly my friend. I don't know how often you're going to use it, but it's there for when you need it. So like I said, drop-down searching is good for exact match, single term trademark searches. You can't do exact phrase trademark searching, so don't think you can cheat the system by throwing something in quotes. It's not actually going to recognize the quotes. It's still going to do um, what it thinks is a relevant search result. Now with your field tag searching, that's when you can do that complex multi-term trademark search. And you can do exact phrase trademark searches with field tag. So field tag, definitely the superior option in terms of searching. And that's going to let you do those alternate spelling searches as well. So, if you have that T marquee versus T marquee, and you just want to make sure that you're doing a search that pulls in phonetic equivalents, you can do that with your field tag searches. But we'll start off with drop-down searching because some people just prefer to do that. Now, again, you'll always want to start in expert mode, and that's that red square on the screen right there. The good thing is if you start a search in basic mode and you go, oh, shoot, I needed to be in expert mode. No problem. Just click on expert and then it'll immediately switch mid-search. You don't have to start all over again from scratch. You can filter by live dead using the filters on the left-hand side of the screen. We'll do an example of this here in a little bit and show you how that works. Keep in mind that examining attorneys are only going to look at the live marks when it comes to determining if there's a likelihood of confusion between your applied for mark and a registered mark. Now, that doesn't mean you should ignore the dead marks. The dead marks can be an indication of someone out there who had a registration or an application at one point, but that registration or application abandoned. So if they are still out there actually using that mark, they may have common law rights still that may or may not be superior to the rights that you would get with a federal registration. So look at the dead. If you find something there in the dead that would otherwise be a likelihood of confusion if it were live, think of it as a yellow flag rather than a red flag. You can filter by coordinated class. And I'm going to take a minute here to explain what class is. So in your application, you have to identify the goods and services that you are using your mark with. And every good or service out there in commerce has a particular classification. We have 45 of them. For example, industrial chemicals are in class 1, pharmaceuticals class 5, medical devices class 10, jewelry and precious metals class 14, clothing class 25, business services class 35, medical services class 44, so on and so forth. Everything has a home in one of those numbers. And those individual numbers are actually called international class. And the word international, don't let it throw you off. You aren't getting any international rights with the application and registration that you get with USPTO. The international simply refers to the treaties and agreements that all the countries got together and had when they were deciding what each number was. So don't let the word international throw you off. What we do with regard to these classes, what coordinated class means is that we've looked at these individual international classes and we've tried to help you out because we've said, okay, now that likelihood of confusion analysis looks at whether goods and services are related. It doesn't have anything to do with the specific class numbers. So you can have goods and services in different classes that are still related. And what we tried to do is we tried to, for each individual international class, pick out the other classes where it's most likely that related goods and services reside. For example, in class 28 here, we have games and athletic equipment. So if you have games and athletic equipment in 28, you might also look at related goods and services. Um, Helmets, sports helmets are in class 9. So that would be related to athletic equipment. You have games and game consoles, video game consoles in class 28. Well, that's probably related to downloadable video games in class 9. So you have class 25, which is clothing. You have athletic uniforms in class 25. Well, that's probably related to athletic equipment in class 28. And that's the idea behind coordinated classes. Now, we haven't necessarily gotten every single related good or service with this. So you may want to follow this up with a search of all the classes, but we did our best to make it easier for you with coordinated class. If your coordinated class search brings in too many results, you can certainly narrow down to the individual international class. But if you do that, you may want to consider adding in 3542, which 35 is our retail store services, and class 42 is where retail store services used to be. You also want to add in A, B, and 200, which are certification marks and membership marks. You're typically not going to find anything there, but they're good to include. So if you're narrowing down to international class specifically, also consider adding those in. Tagging your results. So if you're in expert mode, what you can do when you get results is you can click that little box in the upper left-hand side of the entry, click all of the ones you want, click on export at the top of the screen, and then you can download an Excel spreadsheet with all of the hits that you clicked on in that Excel spreadsheet. And that's good if you want to look through those at your own pace, somewhere where you're not in our search system, somewhere off on your own time. We also have this summary page. You can get this in expert mode and if you're logged into your USPTO.gov account. And this is one of those things that we added based on the feedback we were getting from users. They clicked on that feedback button in the search system and they said, hey, do you have something that you can make the search results cleaner when I click on something? Because it goes to our PSDR system, our trademark status and document retrieval system. And all this same information is there, but it isn't in quite as readable of a form. So if you want something nice and clean, you can log into USPTO.gov when you do your search, be in expert mode, and when you click on your hits, it brings up this nice clean page. Again, if you're not logged in, you don't want to mess with that, that's okay. Um, you can access our system without having a USPTO.gov account. You do need one to file your application, though. Your search will work just fine without it. So let's do an example. You want to register Quantum as a brand name for t-shirts. And we're going to do drop downs for this one. You hop out and show you how to do that. This is our webpage right here, uspto.gov. Go to trademarks, application process, very first one, search our trademark database. Click on trademark search system here. And there you go. There's that user interface, that splash page that you saw earlier in the slides. First thing I like to do, click expert. The next thing you want to do is you want to change general search to word mark. And that is how you search for the trademark itself. If you do a general search, what it's going to do is it's going to search every single one of these fields, word mark, goods and services, owner, all of that. So if you wanted to register Apple for running shoes, for example, and you just popped in a search for Apple, general search, sure, you would find Apple for clothing and running shoes and all of the types of marks that you do want to look at, but you'd also find iPod, iMac, MacBook, stuff like that, because Apple is in the owner name of Apple Incorporated. You also find every single application or registration where the goods and services had the word Apple in it for apple pies, apple juice, apple orchards, so on and so forth. If it's in an address, so if someone lives on Apple Tree Lane, you would get that hit as well. And the more and more bloated a search becomes with hits that aren't relevant to what you want to look at, the more likely it is that you're going to miss those applications and registrations that you do need to look at. So for purposes of keeping your search neat and clean, if you're going to search for the trademark itself, you want to do the drop down for word mark. Let's type in quantum. Like we said, with the drop downs, you can't do those different spellings. You can't do the types of searches that are going to get you anything other than that dead on hit. So we've hit enter. We've brought up our searches. Now you see what you can do over here. You can search live and dead. If you don't want to look at the dead right now, uncheck the dead box. Now we said we wanted to look up t-shirts. And up here is a very, very alluring trap that says refine search by goods and services. So your first instinct might be to just type t-shirts in here. And that's probably going to lead you down the wrong path because what that's going to do is that's going to limit your search results to those that have t-shirts in the goods and services. But remember that likelihood of confusion only requires goods and services be related. So if someone has quantum for pants and jackets, well, that's certainly something you want to see. But if t-shirts aren't in their list of goods, you would never see it in that search result. So that's why you want to avoid this search field here at the top. What you instead want to do is go over to the coordinated class field. You can hover over these numbers here. You see 8 hand tools, 10 medical apparatus. You go down here, you'll see 25 is clothing. Check that, and there you go. Because t-shirts are a type of clothing, t-shirts are in class 25. You've now done your search for quantum as a brand name for t-shirts, where that search is pulling in related goods and services, or goods and services that are related to t-shirts. You can scroll through here. Here's little check boxes. You can check. Let's just say you want to look at all of these. Then you click on export, tag results, and that's what's going to give you that Excel spreadsheet with everything that you tagged. Up here, if we started our search in basic and we went, wait, I can't tag my search results. What's going on? Oh no, I'm not an expert. Just click on expert and all the expert features spring back to life. There we go. So that is how we would do quantum with a drop-down search where the goods are t-shirts. So now let's talk field tags. When you are doing a field tag search, what you're doing is you are using a tag at the beginning of your search term to tell the search engine to search in a particular place. So here, CM, that's how you search for word mark. It's in caps, followed by a colon, and then this is your search term. So if you wanted to look up the term trademark as a trademark, this is what that search would look like, CM colon trademark. So let's just say you want to register Quantum Leap as a brand name for t-shirts. Now this is multiple words, so it's probably not a good search for the drop downs. Let's run through how you do that. First thing you want to do, execute a dead-on search. CM quotes Quantum Leap. And that's going to get you dead-on hits, everything that is just Quantum Leap, spelled exactly like that. So you see the CM field code there in the front that searches for trademark. The search term is in all lowercase, and the quotation marks tell the system to search for that exact phrase. Now, if you want to limit your search to those marks that are alive, unfortunately in field tags, you don't have those same boxes that you can check over there on the left-hand side of the screen. You have to add and, which is a connector term, that tells the system, okay, give me search hits that meet this first criteria and also this second criteria. LD is the field tag for live and dead, and true is how you signify that you want the live ones. So there you go. That and operator connects the two searches and tells the system both have to be true. The LD field code is whether you search live or dead. Now remember, true is live, false is dead. That's how you do that dead-on search, the first step of the search. Now you would execute an expanded search. You know, expand it out a little bit more so that you're getting stuff that's close but not necessarily identical. And here's where we'll use wildcards. There's two wildcards you want to be familiar with. There is the question mark, which returns exactly one character in the space where you put it. And then there is the asterisk, which returns anywhere from 0 to infinite number of characters in the space that you put it. So Quantum Leap here with the asterisk would look for an infinite number of characters in the beginning and the end of that mark. So if this were Quantum Leap with no space, spelled with two Q's instead of just one, this search would pick it up. Leap with two P's, this search would pick it up. Quantum Leaps, plural, this search would pick it up. So now let's start to get into alternate spellings. You know, we've done our first two, and let's just say we haven't found anything that we think is going to kill our mark from the very beginning. So let's do alternate spelling searches. Here we go. We want to do quantum. Let's do, let's break it up a little bit. Let's spell things a little bit different. Let's truncate these words. Quant or quant with QU and QW. Let's pull them both in. So you see in the parentheses, that's how you tell the system to search for that particular search first. If anyone remembers their middle school math, it's the same way with mathematic operations. So put it in parentheses. That's going to tell the system to do that first. It's going to say, listen, go out there and search for either quant or quant with anything on the front, anything on the back. And once you've done that, filter those search results to only give me the live ones. While we're at it, let's do leap. Same thing, infinite stuff on the front, infinite stuff on the back. Let's spell it L-E-A-P or L-E-E-P. And again, I only want the live ones. So there you go. Removing the final sounds and adding that asterisk can capture different variations of that spelling. So if you want, you can combine all of that into one giant search. For me, that's a little unwieldy. You can do it. The system will recognize it just fine and run the search. These are all your connectors. Make sure you put your ORs in those parentheses. So you're telling the system to do that first as an individual search. Or what I like to do is combine line item searches. So there was our first search. Um, let's just say that's the first search we've done in the system. That's going to be one is quant or quant and LD true. The second search is going to be leap or leap and LD true. 1 and 2. So that's nice and clean. You're telling the system, look, I want that first search for everything quant and that second search for everything leap. And that's going to be a good way to get quantum leap. I'm going to show you how to play around with this in the search builder. And the search builder, it's sort of a combination between the dropdown and field tag. It makes the complex field tag searches a little bit easier to do. It's a little bit more intuitive and user friendly. So you select the field you want in your drop down menu. You enter in your search term, including wildcards, and then you can refine it by adding more criteria. So what you do in order to access this is in that search field, or that drop down field rather, you go down to field tag and search builder, click search builder underneath it, and then you can start building. So let's do that. Go down to my favorite button, the reset button, reset everything. And here we go. First step, let's be in expert mode. We always want to be in expert mode. Field tag and search builder down here. Make this a little bit bigger so everyone can see. So how do we want to do this? Click on field tag. Now remember we said CM was how you do word mark. You could do want, add that, go to your connector here, or run that search. So that'll give you a line item of 1. Go up here, 1, and LD, live dead indicator, live, true. There we go. We've got quant or quant and LD true. And that is search number 2. I'm going to close that out. Leap or leap, build that. That's search number 3. Delete this 3, and you want the live ones. There you go. So now this was quant live. This is leap live. So we want 2 and 4. There you go. That's going to get you quantum leap. See all of our quantum leap marks here. And now there's different ways that you can get at the alternative spellings. Um, the first one that we did was just kind of picking different ways of spelling quantum. We did QU, we did QW. Maybe you think that, okay, there's probably not going to be a lot of words that end in ontum. So I'll just drop those first 2 letters off. That way I'll get QU, I'll get CU, KW, KU, all of that stuff. Ontum. That's one way to do it. There you go. And you see it's mostly bringing in different quantums. There's lantum in there. Okay, so it's not all going to be quantums, but it is going to bring in a lot broader of a search than if you just searched for quantum specifically. And that's how you play in the field tag and search builder engine. You can see where it's sort of a combination between the more simplistic drop downs, but you can still get that complexity that you need for the field tag searching in order to really get at those marks that you want to see for a likelihood of confusion analysis. Let's go ahead and finish back up with the slides. Common search strategy. You can start with the owner name in the ON field. If you want to see, hey, have I already filed this application? Um, what are the applications that I have? Execute your dead-on search. Then start doing those alternate spellings if your dead-on search doesn't get you anything. You execute additional searches looking for different versions of the trademark. You can do word and designs alone. You can do words and designs together, words that have similar meanings, acronyms and what they stand for. You can search for pictorial equivalents using the design code field tag. Narrow your results if you need. Start with coordinated class. If you have to go down to individual international class, try to bring in 35, 42, AB, and 200 as well. You can narrow down by goods and services. We do not recommend it. Only do that if it's absolutely necessary because you can end up missing a lot, like we saw with t-shirts. If you just look for t-shirts with regard to quantum, you would miss all other clothing goods. How to find help. If you run into some issues with your application process in general, if you want to learn about particular aspects of the trademark application process, our website is a great place to start. You just go to that trademarks tab that I showed you. Look through there. There's a lot of great information there. If you have specific trademark search issues, you can go to the trademark search help there at the bottom. The trademark search system itself is there as the second bullet point. You don't have to remember this URL. I showed you how to access it from the website, should you forget it. But if you had the slides nearby, you could always just click on it. The Trademark Assistance Center is great. They can answer questions that you have about the application process and procedurally where your application is. They can't give legal advice, though. If you're getting correspondence and you don't know whether it's legit or not, this is a great number to call to check on that. Keep in mind that we do not provide legal advice, enforce legal rights, or recommend specific attorneys. Your best resource is going to be an experienced trademark attorney, and most trademark filing companies can only provide limited services. So beware of scams. Unfortunately, the scammers are out there, they're more active than ever, and they are trying to separate you from your hard-earned money. Like I said, we have that Trademark Assistance Center out there. If you're getting correspondence that seems a little fishy, that's a great number to call to figure out, is this actually coming from the USPTO or is this coming from somewhere else? Pretty much as soon as you hit submit on your application and your email becomes part of the public record, you're going to be getting solicitations and scam attempts. Highly recommend going to this site up here to educate yourself on what is out there, what the scammers are doing to try and get at you and your money. So, at the very least, you're going to be able to recognize a scam before you get taken. Beware of non-attorney filing firms. There are only two people that can represent you before the USPTO. That is you yourself as the applicant and a US licensed attorney. If there is a company where there is not a US licensed attorney on staff that is handling your application, they are not permitted to represent you. And a lot of these non-attorney filing firms will tell you, hey, we can do your application for $50, for $100, which is less than the actual filing fee. They rope people in, and then they'll fill out the application, which is generally something that you're perfectly capable of doing yourself. They'll take your $100 and they'll say, great, now all you have to do is pay the filing fee to the USPTO later, and then they've left with $100, having not really necessarily provided any valuable service. You also want to beware of misleading notices and offers. If it sounds fishy, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So, with all of that in mind, do we have any questions out there?
All right. Thank you so much, Kyle. You did a really great job. I was able to answer a lot of the questions in the Q&A. So let's just go over a few short questions, go
Okay.
through and see if anyone else has any questions. Please feel free to drop them in the Q&A. Again, just a reminder that we do have live links to the presentation slides and other resources and materials in the chat box down on your bottom right-hand side. So I just wanted to start, Kyle, with I know that you can use the search builder if you don't want to learn that search syntax, but say if you do, where are you going to find like those operators, those wildcards, the search fields, those field tags? Where can I find those in the search system?
Excellent. So, we mentioned this very briefly at the beginning, and you can find all of that here in Help. So click on help. And for getting started, as you might guess, this is going to be a lot more of the foundational information about the search system. So it'll tell you a little bit about your drop downs, um, how to use your field tag and search builder options, the summary page, so on and so forth. But if you're like, listen, I want the advanced stuff, I want to know where the good stuff is. You click on that advanced tab. That'll tell you a little bit about the formatting. It'll tell you some of the field tags up here, like the most commonly used ones, some common search strings. Here are your logical operators and wildcards. So your and or your and not. Some of these are a little more advanced, but you don't have to use all of them. When I show you the field tags section here in a little bit, I believe there are 63 different field tags. Don't be overwhelmed when you look at that. Even as an experienced examining
Mhm.
attorney, I think day to day, I probably used 6 of them with any regularity, maybe 15 total. So don't think that just because you're not using all of those field tags, the search that you're doing isn't legally sufficient. There's a lot there. Don't get overwhelmed. So here are those wildcards right here that we were discussing. That question mark that gives you exactly one character. And then you have your asterisk that retrieves anywhere from 0 to an infinite number of characters. And you can use that internally with a search. So if, for example, you want to look up quantum, but you want to return um, hits that before that final M have any type of vowel. So quantum, Quantum, Quantam, so on and so forth. Well, maybe you just pop a question mark there before that M, and that'll bring in all of that. So that's one of the examples or one of the instances where that question mark might be the wildcard you want to use instead of the asterisk. Again, none of this is legal advice. We're just showing you how to use the system. It's going to be up to you how you want to craft your search. Now, enough talking about that. Let's get to the good stuff right here. I don't know why it opened up instead of down, so now I have to scroll back up to show people this. Search fields. Right here is going to be all of the search fields. You'll see here on the left is the field tag, the field name, as well as a description of what that field is and what you're going to be looking for when you use that particular field tag. So you see there are a lot of them. Um, don't don't feel overwhelmed by this. And that's where you're going to find all of that information. Now I'm going to use this as a segue to our next point. I see we have 4 minutes.
Yes.
Um, Design code. We kind of hit that there at the very end, like, hey, search for words and designs. Some of you might be out there going, wait, designs? We didn't talk about designs. That's true. We didn't go into designs in all that detail in this training, but we'll go over it briefly right now. Um, so if you want to search designs, because obviously a lot of trademarks have design elements to them as well. It's not just wording that you're going to encounter out there. Um, so if you want to search for designs, you will do that by searching the design code. Every type of design out there fits into a specific category and has a specific 6-digit design code assigned to that category. If you want to look at all of those, you can click on the Design Search Code Manual here in the Help section. We are working to have that placed more prominently um, in the search builder. So if you do click on DC because you want to search design code, we're trying to have that link pop up right there so you don't have to go fishing for it. But for the time being, you do have to do a little fishing. So this is the design code manual. Right here, you put in whatever you want in this box. Let's look up lizards.
Mhm.
And here's what it gives us. So you see it has the larger subdivision under animals. Category 3 is animals. Category and division 0321 is amphibians and reptiles. If you want more specific than that, you can find lizards, salamanders, chameleons, iguanas, other reptiles, 032106. Stylized amphibians and reptiles. So that's going to be where um, as the name implies, they're hyper stylized. It's not just a depiction of that amphibian or reptile in and of itself. There's something stylized about it. Um, and then 032126 is costumed amphibians and reptiles. So if you have a lizard in a cowboy hat, it would probably go under there. But if you want to search all amphibians and reptiles, you could do 0321 asterisk. And instead of just talking about that, let's do that search. DC for design code. And you can either put in the periods or not. The system isn't sensitive to that search. So we'll do 0321 to get asterisk because we want to pull in everything that comes after that, every type of amphibian and reptile. So there you go. You got a snake right here. You have, I don't know what that is, maybe an alligator face, and this tiny one here, another snake, another snake. Let's just say, you know what? I don't want to look at snakes. Snakes scare me. I just want the lizards. So
Okay.
032106 is just the lizards. 0321 6. Let me check if it, yeah, it's 06. And there we go.
All right.
That's how you play with the design codes to get that search for design elements of a mark. And I
Thank
think
you.
that
Oh, sorry.
no, no, no. We just hit the
Yeah, we just hit the 4 o'clock mark. We got one last question that got right in there. So I think this will be really quick and then you can close us out for the afternoon. Leslie wants to know, how does the search system sort search results? And is there a particular way that you can change the way it is sorting your results?
so if you do sort by relevance, um, our algorithm tries to grab what it thinks is the most relevant to your mark. Um, you can also search by alphabetical over here if you want to do that. So Spring Lizard is here at the very beginning because the quotes right here are being pulled in as a character that precedes the alphabet. So you can do it alphabetically if you want it by class. So you're like, look, I just want to look at industrial chemicals in class 1 or cosmetics in 3. You can sort it that way. Serial number 0 to 9 tends to get you oldest to most recent. There are some exceptions in there, but if you want to change how your results are returned, that's how you'll do it. And I have one final point. Looking at those quotes um, reminded me of something. So if you are searching, um, typically on an Apple product, but it's safer to do this for any tech product that you're searching on, make sure you turn off the smart punctuation. We are working on this in our system, but it is a bug. Currently, if you use smart quotes, it'll give you all kinds of results that aren't relevant to what you're actually looking for. So go in the system, turn off smart punctuation if you're going to use quotes. So I think we'll end on that advisory unless
Yes.
you have anything else.
No, thank you so much.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. Appreciate your presence, even if I couldn't see you directly. And I wish you the best of luck in your application and hopefully registration process.